We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So, I like to talk about that we have three distinct bodies. We have the physical body. That's the one we know. That's the one that bruises and breaks, and we can see those things right away. But we also have the emotional body. That's our psychology. That is, how does our mind interpret what's happening? How to feel about it? But then the third body is the innermost body, and that's the spiritual body. That is, how does energy run through your body? It has nothing to do with your belief system. It has to do with how do our souls navigate this world in these meat suits, right? And so when just as much as our physical body can be injured and our emotional body can be injured, well, so can our spiritual body.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the medicine, physical or pharmaceuticals, doesn't help the spiritual body. We can adjust the emotional and the physical, but it's that spiritual body that also needs it. And that's really what the whole basis of my work is working on the spiritual body.
Bryan Grijalva, welcome to Fear Unzipped. I am delighted to have you here. My dear friend, Susan Gra, who I say on every episode introduced me to you. She always introduces me to the most exquisite, beautiful people. You are the first medical medium that I'm having on the podcast, and I don't know much about this. I'm so excited to dive in. I do want to say something about your background, that you are a psychic, you're a medical intuitive, that you work with a lot of elite athletes, which I'm sure they have to be really on to perform. You work with Olympians, with celebrities, with musicians. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. Plus, I'm sure you work with the everyday person such as myself. You are trained in
Absolutely.
You're trained in 27 modalities, which is mind-boggling to me. And you have something called the Sacred Circle, which is in El Segundo, California, where I assume people come in person. I wanted to read this quote that you have said, which I thought was really powerful. When you begin to heal, you heal more than symptom, you heal your story too. And I think that's really important. So now, Bryan, can you share with us a bit about your background before you became a medical intuitive?
Sure. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me here. Also, it's something that I absolutely love sharing my work. And it's just something that I get so excited about that it's hard for me to contain myself. This is one of those things I love talking about it, especially over the last couple of years where we've had this really much it's a surgence in this sort of interest in the other types of healing other than conventional mainstream, Western based medicine. And so it's very exciting. I love being here and I can't wait to share the story. So yeah, um, I come from a family of psychics, and the truth is they hate it when I say that. It's something that because I am also the only extrovert in my entire family. So for them, they'd much rather be quiet. But, there was lots of things that were just normal discussions for us at home. And it's also being Mexican. Part of the Mexican culture is also understanding spirit, understanding those that have passed. I mean, Day of the Dead was just passed. And so that's a big part of our culture. So the idea of communing with spirits is very normal. And so, it wasn't until I started going to school here in the States that I realized, oh, what, you guys don't have these discussions at home like we do? Oh, wow. And then going to a, Catholic school, growing up in a Catholic school, it was also very, it was on the edges of what was acceptable. So there was a whole lot of that going on. But, the truth was, it was never something that was odd or different or stood out until later in life. So I became what I'm doing now with holistic healing and embodying all the different things together. I had no intention of doing this professionally. I used to own an auto shop. I mean, it was a family business, was amazing. And one day my sister started developing these really debilitating migraines. I mean, just the poor thing was just a mess. And there was one day in particular, it was really bad. Her husband was at work and she was so sick, she called me. And so I picked her up. I had no idea what to do with her. I brought her home. I pulled up the yellow pages. It shows you how long ago this was, right? And I called every massage therapist, every spa to come over and give her a massage on her neck. That usually helped, but couldn't find anyone. And everyone kept telling me tomorrow, whereas my sister was in this little ball. I mean, just in the worst way. And long story short, eventually her husband showed up, took her somewhere. She was fine. But I was so upset that I couldn't help her that night I signed up for massage school. And I went from one bad school into the next until I found an amazing holistic healing center in Yosemite that really cracked me open and showed me how you can really integrate all of the psychic ability with physical healing modalities and put them together to help heal. And since then, I hit the ground running and I've never stopped.
Wow. So what happened when you started actually healing and putting your hands on people? What happened to you?
Well, I'm going to tell you something really funny. A story I don't think I've shared with anyone because it was really fun. The very first thing, this school was amazing. And Thomas Aher, my teacher, was just the most beautiful soul. He closed the school, but we did this whole module. It was 3 weeks, I believe, on Reiki. And I was the guy in the back of the room thinking, all right, this sounds like bullshit to me. What is this thing? And everyone else in the class was really excited about it. They were feeling something. And I was just going through the motions because I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And then one day it's my turn to lay on the table and they're laying their hands on me, running Reiki. And I just lay there like, okay, and then I felt an ant crawling on my back. And I figured, well, someone's going to pick this ant off, right? And then another ant and another. And before you know it, I felt like I was covered in thousands of ants. And that's when I realized, oh, this is energy flowing through my body. I get it now. And then that was feeling the other side of the coin. And now it all made sense. And since that day forward, I was able to really tap into it because now I understood it viscerally.
So it opened up that stop sign. The stop sign went away because you're thinking, oh, this is ridiculous. And you just needed to clear that. And then, oh, that's fascinating to me. In your family, since the family of psychics, so was it really common for you guys to just say, oh, and are they mediums as well?
Yeah, it's hard to say because the truth is this conversation makes my family a little nervous.
Understood.
So, but in my mother's house, for example, we have the old man. He lives there. We've all seen him at different points in our life. And very recently, my nephew came over with his new wife and she said, oh, hello to somebody who was upstairs, but we were all downstairs. And she looked at me and I said, oh, what did you see? She's like, there was a nice old man upstairs. I said, come sit down. We have to have a conversation.
So it was just very comfortable. There was nothing that was strange. It's anybody could come and hang out, and it was very, very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
It could be that also it was such a private thing. It was too maybe strange to share outside with other people.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where my family lies. I, however, am not. I talk about everything openly. There is no subject that's off limits. And so, I do know that my work does make them a little nervous, but this is my story. This is my truth. And right. I know how many people I'm helping. And, of course, they encourage me behind the scenes so much, but, it's just part of the way it is.
It's family. It's family, Bryan.
I love
we love them to pieces, and then we just, whatever. So are you noticing, and this is a part of Fear Unzipped and why it even came to fruition. It's a bridging between neuroscience and metaphysics, and I'm finding that more and more people that come from medical professions are incorporating what we would have called in the past metaphysical things such as visualization, intuition, energy work. that they're absolutely supportive of it, which to me is thrilling. It's a thrilling time to be alive. Are you finding that as well?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm so glad you just said that. You know, I'm going to share this quick story because it shows how far we've come. 20 years ago or so, I had, someone I was working with and whose partner was a physician. And he used to be the most rude person to me when I would go to their house. Just very rude. He just didn't believe in anything that I was doing. He just thought it was, well, what did he call it? Something like malarkey. He had some word like that. I mean, he called this was just to him useless. And then one day he's kind of circling around the room and he doesn't want to come in, but he doesn't want to leave either. And he waited until I was packing up my things. And he says, hey, can I ask you a question? And I thought this is the most conversation I've ever had with this man. And he was telling me about a very specific medical issue that was going on that he couldn't figure it out. And he asked, do you have any thoughts? I identified what it was and I fixed it. 4 minutes. It took 4 minutes to fix this issue that he'd been having. He reached into his wallet and just started handing me piles of cash, whatever he had. He's like, here, take it, take it, take it. And this is where it went sideways because what he said to me was, please don't tell anyone about this. And my response to him was, that's the problem. I will never use your name, but I'm going to tell everyone about this because that is the problem. We're so stuck in fear that this has to be like this in what we know, but there's so much that other people know. There's so many modalities, so many things that may sound crazy to someone else who's never studied it. But to me, it's a Tuesday. It's normal.
Yeah.
And when it helps and you help facilitate someone's healing, I'm not healing them. They're healing themselves. I'm just showing their body how. And sometimes that's just a simple conversation.
That's the beauty of all this right now that I am hearing. I had a physicist on, Thomas Campbell, and he very much believes in all of this that we're talking about. And it's just so rewarding to me to see where the two are merging together, that we're breaking down the fear, it's dissipating a little bit, and we're honoring both sides, because I think Western medicine is very important. I also think the metaphysics side is equally as important. And I just got a message through a DM through Instagram, a woman who I do not know, but she follows my Instagram, and she said she is in medical school. She said she's very interested in mediumship and she wants to be a psychiatrist. And I said, well, guess what? You're going to be the best psychiatrist out there because you're marrying both together. That was thrilling to me, Bryan. Absolutely thrilling.
Absolutely, because that is, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So, I like to talk about that we have three distinct bodies. We have the physical body. That's the one we know. That's the one that bruises and breaks, and we can see those things right away. But we also have the emotional body. That's our psychology. That is, how does our mind interpret what's happening? How do we feel about it? But then the third body is the innermost body, and that's the spiritual body. That is, how does energy run through your body? It has nothing to do with your belief system. It has to do with how do our souls navigate this world in these meat suits, right? Mm-hmm. And so when just as much as our physical body can be injured and our emotional body can be injured, well, so can our spiritual body.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the medicine, physical or pharmaceuticals, doesn't help the spiritual body. We can adjust the emotional and the physical, but it's that spiritual body that also needs it. And that's really what the whole basis of my work is working on the spiritual body.
Do you find that people's illnesses and to me, the stress levels out in the world, especially now, it's very fearful, it's very stressful, and people are getting sick. People around me, I mean, getting very, very ill, like on the verge of living or dying. And are you finding that most disease is because there's an imbalance in that spirit, emotional body?
Absolutely. There are things that are physiological or biological in nature. Absolutely. That we understand that.
Mhm.
But then there's this other section, and when you look at things like Chinese medicine, we'll call things as dis-ease,
Mhm.
not disease, but dis-ease. There's something wrong with the way your body is naturally in its natural state. So there's something going on there. And the truth is, most things that I treat are what I would like to call disease adjacent. There is true for just anxiety, for example. There is true anxiety that happens in the body. Absolutely understand. But then there's what I like to call anxiety adjacent. It's
Mhm.
all of those things that your body is interpreting. So the next closest thing is anxiety, but it's not it exactly, because it's not a physical or emotional or spiritual issue. It's all of the above together. And so when we
Mhm.
learn to treat things that way in conjunction with traditional medicine, the person heals. And isn't that the goal?
100%. So can you do this remotely or do you have to physically be with somebody?
No, yeah, no, I can do this remotely. It's obviously much easier and better because I can actually, part of what I like to do is I like not only to be able to figure out what's happening with person, then also fix it.
Yeah.
I like to get my hands dirty. I like to get things done. I talk fast. I move fast. I want things done yesterday. I'm the most impatient person on earth. And so when I talk to someone, over Zoom or someone on the other side of the world, I always want to tell them, like, get on the next flight, come here, we'll fix it, and we can move on with your life. I mean, the human body doesn't want to be sick. So
Yeah.
when we give it the tools it needs to heal itself, it's a beautiful thing. So there is no competition. It's all integrated together. And so part of that is, to answer your question, yes, I can do it remotely. I can also look into anyone that you know. That is how this works. I don't know. I spent so many years trying to figure out how it works, the mechanisms of all these things. And I leave that for smarter people than me. I don't know how it works. I know I flip a light switch, lights turn on.
Mhm.
I don't know anything about electricity at all, but I don't know how this works. I just know that it does. So I can look into you and anyone you know through you, using you as an anchor.
I don't think we're supposed to know how it works. I think that's the part that's not important, right? It's
Mm,
just the part that's important is the doing. And
absolutely.
so so many of us are very analytical and we try to, hunker down and figure out things. And I'm finding right now, Bryan, in this time and energetic time that we're in, which is really booming energetically, if you're trying to find the little details of everything right now and control and figure it out, it's just not going to happen. And it is going to stop you. So I just go, well, that was interesting. And I move on and just go, well, that was really important information.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So you are also very well known for finding the mysterious, for uncovering what is a challenge for doctors and others, a very mysterious illness or something that's happening, but you seem to be able to tap into that. Can you kind of explain more about that?
Absolutely. So, one of the anecdotes that my dad always taught me, right, is like, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so we tend to look at things through our lenses. And that's not a fault. That's actually an incredible ability. It's an incredible gift, right? So a cardiologist is always going to look for a heart-based problem, always. And that goes for everything else. Every field, you're going to look for what you know. But the good thing is, I'm not a physician. I don't pretend to be. I am a human being that can tap into what's happening with you energetically. How it works, again, we don't know. But I'm not tied to any box. So I allow the body to tell me what's going on, not me trying to figure out what the body is. I don't have a checklist and I rule things out as most of our deductive reasoning happens. That's not the way it works for me. I will quiet myself. I'll quiet my mind. I allow myself to synchronize with someone else. And then I physically feel on me what's happening. Now, there is a difference as far as, like, if there's a stomach issue, I'm going to feel pain or I'm going to feel discomfort in my stomach. So that tells me there's something going on here and that we can work our way into it that way. But I'm not having coming in with any sort of preconceived or any sort of parameters. It's what's happening. And sometimes that shows up as here is this really horrible thing that's happened, this grief, and it's an emotion trapped in the shoulder or, in a body part that seems like it should be physical in nature, but it's not. And the minute we lay our hands on there and start manipulating the tissue and running energy, then the person has a huge emotional release and they get rid of this thing and it's gone. And so I think that's part of the medical mysteries, is that I think sometimes we have too narrow of a view when it comes to health. It comes to, these are the check boxes, these are the blood work, this is the parameters, what we're looking for. And if you're outside, then it must mean this or must mean that. I don't think that's the case. I think that we're human beings and we're much more complicated than what can be spit out on a piece of paper. There's so many things that we can't even talk about because we don't even know they're there.
Yeah. So when you're looking, if you were to look in somebody's stomach, you feel it in your stomach, you feel that there's some sort of an issue in there. At that point, are you also hearing or feeling, or maybe loved ones coming in? I don't know if others from the other side help you. And you're feeling like, well, what happened when you were 5 years old? Does that happen?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll kind of give you like a hypothetical, right? If someone is coming in and they have a stomach issue and I feel it in me and I feel this thing, what I allow myself to do, instead of running away from the problem, I run toward it. Let me feel what's really happening. And I will get emotions. I will hear things. I will see things. I will taste. It's all the senses. It's all the clairs, right? They all come in. I don't know what's going to come in. But sometimes if I'm feeling some issue in the stomach, for example, and I can hear a voice that's telling me something, I just spit it out as quickly as possible because I don't know what these things mean. And generally the person I'm talking to knows exactly what that is. And so it all unfolds in a very strange way. Sometimes, and gets really weird, sometimes I'm seeing my own memories so that I can understand the nuances of the emotion. It really is bizarre, and I never know what's going to happen. So, I'll give you a simple example. Sometimes I will smell cigarette smoke, a very particular type of cigarette smoke, and I will smell that. Now, to a lot of people, that's repulsive. But to me, it's very comforting because that meant Dad's home. And there is this really warm, beautiful feeling of safety, of nurturing, of knowing that everything's going to be okay when I smell cigarette smoke, that particular type. And so that's a very personal memory for me, but that's sometimes the message I need to convey. So the soul loves to communicate in emotion.
Yeah.
And so when I feel that emotion, I have to say it because it's not mine, it's theirs.
Well, it's really remarkable. And so you do have loved ones on the other side that are helping you in these processes?
Yeah, that part, I don't know. That's a really interesting thing. To me, it's more memory and emotion, but I honestly don't know where it comes from. I'm getting prepared to do a retreat. I'm actually leaving, I think, tomorrow for a retreat in Mexico. So I'm preparing all my things. But one of the things that I laugh about is when I say these things, especially in front of a big group, I am a human person. I'm just a regular guy, right? And I'm trying to do my best to have 1 foot here and 1 foot over there, trying to get the information. So sometimes information comes in. I'll give this example. I did a retreat a while back, and this woman was sitting in front of me, and I was going on and on about her left leg. Her left leg, there was something going on with her left leg. And she kept looking at me with just no, that's not it. So I checked again, and everything told me over and over again, it's her left leg. And afterwards I said, okay, well, I guess you'd keep shaking your head. It's not it. And she said, no, it's the right. I was like, come on, work with me a little bit. I have 1 foot here, 1 foot there, try to understand it. That would have been a simple little correction that could have made a world of difference, but everything I said was accurate. It was just the wrong side.
It could have been also the way you were looking at her. It could have been her left leg, which was really her right leg. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's hard to sometimes stay on top of that. I mean, Hell, I have a hard time with that still now, left and right. I have a hard time with those things.
Yeah, no, I
And
understood.
it's just really funny. It's like, come on.
Oh, that's really funny. Well, some
Yeah.
people also they like to kind of trip you up. They don't want to really believe what you're saying,
Yes.
which
Yes.
and I've said so many times on this podcast, being a skeptic is a very, very good place to be, but you have to be open-minded and you can't come in with judgment.
Yes.
And
That's
then
exactly it. That's
and you
exactly it.
you make your own decision whether this is, bull or this is really going to make a difference.
Absolutely. And that'll also come into take when it comes to our health. If you really believe that you have X, Y, or Z condition, you have X, Y, or Z condition. And it doesn't matter what I say or anyone says, anyone, you believe it, you're going to search until you find what you're looking for. And that is, that's almost knowing too much, right?
Yeah.
It's that part where you're trying to figure it out. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times people come in with the craziest health concerns, health issues, and I talk about, oh, well, look at this emotions chapter. No, that's not it. And I hear that. No, that's not it. Okay, I don't know why you're here then. No, I'm trying to help. That's it.
And it's funny that they would come to you because that's kind of what you're all about. I remember I went to a retreat and I'd never had Reiki on me. And we were in the break and somebody came up to me and they said, oh, I'll just do a little something on you. And she says, what emotion are you holding on in your left shoulder? And I'm going, my left shoulder is so messed up. I mean, I did throw it, I was thrown from a treadmill, whatever, but it's more than that. And I'm thinking, how does she know? Because I know there's emotion in it. I have it, I'm kind of dealing with it right now, but I know that it's emotion. And I thought that was fascinating that she picked up on that. It wasn't that my tendons were out of whack, it's that it's the emotion.
Well,
And I know in my body, I know that it's more emotion than anything else that gets trapped. So which leads me to my next question. I, all my life, was extremely anxious. I didn't realize that I was intuitive or psychic or I had mediumship abilities. I didn't know that.
it,
But I felt everything, thinking that this is all my stuff. And it wasn't until my later 50s that I realized, when I really got into neuroscience and I really got into metaphysics, I realized, hey, this isn't mine. Like 98% of this is not mine. So what is something we can do to discern whether an emotion we're feeling is ours or somebody else's?
oh my God, I love this question. I love this question so much. This is so great. So, let's look at this, for example. Let's just try to understand what anxiety is first, right? Because it'll help us backtrack and figure out what this is. So anxiety is a really helpful sensation in the body. If you were walking in the forest and you're surrounded by a pack of wolves, you should be anxious. That's the appropriate reaction in the body because that's going to release all of our stress hormones. Our muscles are going to be tight and ready to run, ready to fight, ready to do something, right? You're going to become hyper vigilant of every little thing because your body is perceiving danger. Now, as an intuitive, we're perceiving all of that all the time. Danger. And so because we're reading everyone else, picking up everyone else's emotions. So it's really important, one, to separate ourselves from everyone else super quick. And I can share this really quick. It's a really quick, I don't even know what to call it. My master teacher showed it to us, and now I show it to everyone else because it's so important. So anywhere, when you start to feel that sensation of, I don't know what's going on, I'm feeling danger, just look at anyone in the room, pick the first person you see, and then you say 3 statements, starting with yourself first, that make you different. So for example, I could look around and say, I am male, she is female. I am wearing a white shirt, she is wearing a black shirt. I have brown shoes, she's got no shoes, whatever it is. You pick 3 differences starting with yourself first. What that does, it helps the soul understand where you begin and where you end. So it creates a sort of barrier between you and everyone else. So then that helps remove the extra so that there's nothing else bleeding in. And now what you're left with is the raw information that you are actually experiencing. And then we have to ask ourselves the question, am I in danger or am I uncomfortable? And when you're able to answer that question honestly, danger, get out of there. Uncomfortable, there's something to learn here. And that's the big difference. We often mistaken discomfort for danger, and it triggers a whole response that we want to run, right? And so that's a big part of all intuitives have this problem because we're sensing so much that is outside of ourselves. So in order to really understand what am I actually feeling, we have to separate ourselves and then interpret what we're actually feeling.
So if you're alone, if I'm alone and I'm feeling all of a sudden this anxiety, which also could very possibly not be from me because I can pick up on other people, they don't have to be with me, will I then look at maybe something on TV and say, that's a man, I'm a woman, my name is Sandy, his name is Bryan.
Exactly. And always start with I am first, because it's about I am this, they are that. I am here, they are there. I am this, they are that. To help us separate, because it's proprioception, right? It's understanding where we begin and where we end. What do we feel outside of our normal perception? What do we actually feel?
I am. That makes so much sense to separate us.
I do this every time I walk into like a Disneyland or some sort of big event. It's, whoa, I have to pick the first person I see and do it. If not, I'm going to be a mess.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So if you go to a restaurant, you go to a concert, you're out walking on the street, are you picking up and going, oh, that guy has heart disease, that woman has cancer? Does that happen to you?
All the time. All the time. And it's so hard to not say, because my whole mission in life is to facilitate healing. That's why I'm here. It's quite literally my life's mission. And so when I see these things, it's so hard not to share. And now I will tell you this, it's taken me many years. I've been doing this now for, 25 years or so. Early on, I made a mess. I made a lot of mistakes. I overshared when I shouldn't have overshared. And I've learned that shut the hell up. Yeah. If they don't ask for your help, do not share. And it's really hard because sometimes I don't know if people know this or not. And so I was at a concert and the man next to me was clearly dying. I could feel his life force just dripping away. And I couldn't even pay attention to the concert because he kept pulling my attention to him. And then I thought, she probably already knows. Who am I to tell him and ruin his concert if he's here trying to enjoy the last days of his life, right? That thing kind of sticks in the mind, but you can't help it but turn it on. So what do? Pick the first person I see, remind my soul where I begin and where they end, and I end rather than where they begin, and to help separate that energy. But yeah, it's all the time.
Yeah, that would be really hard, Bryan. I have found that with myself, if somebody introduces me to their girlfriend or their new wife or somebody, I'll go, oh, no, that's not good. And if somebody asks me, well, what do you think of this relationship? I will tell them, but there are times I just want to say, oh my God, run so far away in the other direction. But I've learned to control that because it's their journey. It's not mine. And it might work out great for them. And, but my instinct is, oh my goodness, this is not good.
I know. And it's hard because it's one of those things, it must be impossible to be in a relationship with one of us. Yeah. To think about all of the things that we're privy to, that we have to hold in, that we're trying to navigate. And, I've joked around for years about creating a support group for those people who are, in relationships with intuitives, it's a whole other thing.
It is funny because I do navigate things differently. I have to be really careful who I say this, intuitive information to. But I've learned within my family. I've learned in my family how to do it, and I have a very intuitive family, which is great. My husband's super linear, so he doesn't think I'm total cuckoo bird, but he'll listen and then okay, whatever. You do you. You do you, Sandy.
Sure. Okay. I love
But
that.
but that is hard, and it took me most of my life, Bryan, to navigate the energies that were coming into me. And I went to the gym. I go to the gym a lot, and I swear that saved my life, because otherwise I think I would have gotten really sick. So can you share with us some things that we can do? You don't even have to be an empath, but that we can do to just keep our health on track a bit. Besides the obvious, working out and walking and whatever, but is there something mentally, emotionally we can do?
Yes, absolutely. So there are two things that I think are extremely important. And I tell almost everyone to do these things because it's, in general, great. So if you are an intuitive person in any shape, way, or form, you need to create art. It's part of it. The brow chakra, right in the middle of our forehead, is our creative center. It's also our center of intuition. And so when we practice art, now, a lot of times when I tell people practice art, they think, oh, I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to draw. No, that's not it. Cook a meal. Lay your outfits out for the week. Rearrange the furniture in your home. It's when we are doing things, creating in a way that is based upon instinct as opposed to a formula, right? We're letting the mind be creative and to just let go. Let go. Because when we get trapped in the mind, especially as intuitives, we're hearing so much all the time that when we're in the flow of creation, we're not thinking. You're just creating, you're just doing. So it's a break, and it's a mental break for the mind. This is why all psychics are artists. Whether you want to believe it or not, we all are artists. So lean into it, whatever it is.
And what do you do? What's your art?
Just last night I had a friend over and she was asking me, oh, that's a really cool table. And it's like, yeah, I made that. And oh, that's a great painting. Yep, made that too. And I realized almost my entire living room, I've actually made everything. All the furniture, all the paintings, all the artwork, the whole living room is stuff that I've made. So I have an art studio at home that's my happy place. That's where I go to let go of everything.
Oh, I think that's brilliant. I just spend a lot of time outside.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to be talking to my trees or my animal, my crows and squirrels. I mean, I have to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, I met a new set of trees yesterday that have been, we have huge trees in our yard, but there were 4 I had not talked to before. And I was spending some time with it. And that gets me out of my, my hands on them. It gets me out of this headspace that I can sometimes get into.
Amazing. And that leads me to the second thing I want to tell people to do. So the first one, again, create art, right? That's just beautiful in all kinds of ways. The second one is be selfish. And I know it sounds like a dirty word, right? It's not. When you're going out into nature and you're communing with the animals and the trees, that fulfills your soul. That brings you joy. It's a selfish act. Good for you. Go do that. Do that more. And if that means you've got to go take a nap or whatever it is that's completely 100% selfish, it's amazing. Because the truth is that when we look at our emotions as currency, it helps us re-understand the way that we navigate the world. Where are you investing all of your emotional currency, and who's depositing back into your account? And if no one is depositing or not depositing enough, you got to do it for yourself. So be selfish. And I know it sounds crazy, but especially the hardest person to convince to be selfish is a mother. That's the hardest person on earth to convince to be selfish. But, there's been 1,001 references to this, but if you watch National Geographic, you'll see that the lioness goes out to hunt. She hunts the wildebeest, she eats the wildebeest, and then she drags whatever's left for everyone else. But she eats first because she's got to do it again tomorrow. And so unless we take care of ourselves first, we're not going to make it till tomorrow.
Put the oxygen mask on first, right? Before on your child.
Exactly it. And it sounds counterintuitive, right? It sounds like, especially as parents, like, no way, I'll put it on my kid first. But if you don't make it, they're never going to make it.
Exactly.
And so for our health, it's be creative and be selfish. Those are the two things that are 100% are necessary.
Okay, I have a little story to share with you that I just heard yesterday. I'm in this group with these beautiful intuitive women. One of them said she grew up with parents that she had to do. Like she, as a child, had to constantly do something, accomplish something, be great in school. Sitting, relaxing was out of the question, and play is of no value. So relaxing and play, no, you don't do that. And I came from a very, very different set of parents. And so now she's 62 and she is, for the first time, allowing herself to relax. She also went through a lot of illnesses, like very, very dangerous, life-threatening. She's a remarkable woman and a beautiful intuitive. And yesterday she realized, you know what? I can relax and I can play. And I said, that is of as much value as doing whatever, or of more value. Can we talk a little bit about taking time to nap, to play, to do whatever?
Absolutely. And that falls again under this being selfish category, right? Because that's a big part of it. So I grew up in a garage, right? And owned a garage. And so I like to talk about things in car analogies. You could have the most beautiful souped up Ferrari or whatever supercar you want to think of, and you can drive the thing at 200 miles an hour every single day. At some point, you have to refuel. At some point, you do need to change the oil filter and the air filter. And at some point, you do need to let the transmission cool down. And it's just as important as the actual driving, the maintenance of it. And that goes for anything. Our bodies are machines. If we think of them as the vehicle that our soul is driving, this meat suit also needs maintenance. And part of that maintenance is being able to distract ourselves with play, finding joy, finding pleasure, doing those things to enrich our whole human life experience. But when we are only driving at 200 miles an hour all the time, the machine burns out.
Yeah. And gets sick.
And it gets sick. Exactly. There's so many. When I tell people things like, hey, when was the last time you took a vacation? And they look at me like I'm crazy. That tells me where their illness is coming from. Their bodies are tired. And a vacation doesn't need to be expensive. A vacation is, have you taken the afternoon to just rest and be without any obligation, without any sort of pressure to do anything? It's hard for people to imagine.
It's really hard. During COVID, obviously we were forced to do that, but I knew people that were so used to going, being with friends, being at parties, they could not sit with themselves. It was really, really difficult. It was so stressful. And I said, this is the best thing that could have ever happened to you, to sit with yourself and enjoy your own company. Now, I'm very comfortable. Yeah. I'm very comfortable, like just sitting with myself. I'm really good at relaxing. I'm really good at just chilling. I like watching TV a lot, where I can just zone out. My tastes have changed. I don't watch news at all.
Oh, good.
And I can't watch real violent things, but I love watching funny things or mysteries, whatever. But that is so important. And some people, they get extremely stressed if they're not, because a little voice in their head is saying, you're not good enough. You're not doing enough. You'll never make it. You'll never be successful. Other people are going to be far more successful than you. Those stupid voices that, we listen to.
And they're loud. Those voices are
Mm.
loud. And especially if you've been hearing them your entire life, go be productive, be productive. I mean, this is why we value in our culture, we value extroverts more than introverts because we're viewed as more productive, right? The world doesn't go anywhere without introverts. It doesn't. They're the big thinkers, right? They're the ones that help to move things forward and they figure things out. But that's part of what we look at is if we've been told that our entire lives, go, 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 well, how would you know how to relax?
You don't.
And, listen, I struggle with that myself. That is something that is a very personal struggle of mine. I was just in vacation. I go on these yoga retreats. Amazing, amazing. It's something so beautiful. I've gone all over the world with the same group. And I was in New Zealand and it was raining and a storm came in and we weren't expecting it. So we canceled a hike and we really didn't have much to do. And for just 10 minutes or so, I felt that bubble up. Oh no, what if I have to do something? I have to do something. And starting to feel that. How about you take a nap? How about that crazy idea? And I felt so much better. But that's part of that thing. It's that voice, and that's really does make us sick. It also, that drive to go, go, go is what makes us ignore the small symptoms. We ignore them. We don't even pay attention to them because we think, oh, well, I'll deal with that later. I've got a little headache, but I have to go to work. I had this little thing, so it's fine. But then that little headache becomes a migraine and then becomes debilitating or whatever it is, that little injury we ignore, we suppress, or we forget about, we push away until it can't be ignored anymore. So it's much easier to just deal with it when it shows up in a gentle way.
I think fear also prevents us from the reason that we work and don't take time or whatever is we're scared. We're scared. What are we going to find? What's our mind going to tell us? So we run so fear doesn't hit us, but it just doesn't work that way. It just compounds and it gets worse and worse. Bryan, can you share a story or two of working with a client or two clients that you found quite magical?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. God, there's so many stories about this. It's kind of funny because for me, it's a Tuesday, right? I do this every single day, and it's so normal to me. So I do forget how impactful these things are sometimes. So I'll move a little bit out of the way. On top there's some cards. And I always keep cards. I have a whole other box full of them. But those are the cards that people send me after incredible sessions, right? Things that help you heal from all kinds of crazy things. I'm thinking of a couple. There's a couple stories. I'm trying to figure out how do I share these without, violating anyone's privacy, but I try to kind of be vague about it. I do share this story quite often. I share this story often just because it's so relevant and it shows what happens. So what we've discovered, and with working all these years with people all over for all kinds of different things, is there are things like autoimmune disorder. Autoimmune disorder it can be hereditary, it can come from medications, it can come from a lot of different things. But when it comes up out of the blue, out of nowhere, there's no medical history for this thing, and now it's here, and you have this autoimmune disorder that is debilitating. What I find is that is usually when the soul is fighting your body. And what I mean by that is I have this whole diagram about compass directions. So if you are an artist, that's who you are. Your soul is all about creation. But you're forced by life circumstances, and a lot of times this happens with, emigrating from another country or just death or all kinds of things. You're forced to do a role or live and function as someone that you're not. So if you are a artist, a West-based person, and you're forced to behave like an engineer, your soul will fight you. And it will start showing up in all kinds of crazy ways. Usually shows up first as fatigue. You're just tired because your soul doesn't want you to go to work. It doesn't want you to do this anymore. But then we suppress it because we have to survive, so we keep going. And then now your internal organs start fighting. and they start showing up. And then we ignore that, or we take medications to suppress them. And then we keep going. And now once your soul has been fighting you for years and years, the damage is set. And now we have to really identify what it is, what's the problem, and rewind it. So I have a story about this. So I worked with someone who immigrated to this country, and in their country, they had a very prestigious job. They were, professor and these kinds of things. But when they moved here, nobody would give them a job. It was a, Civil War kind of thing. They had to escape. It was very last minute, very unplanned, just here. So now they're trying to survive. They had to get just a regular, what do you call it? Like a regular 9-to-5 job somewhere, getting paid minimum wage just to survive. It's crushing them. It's killing their soul. And showed up here with just a list this big, this thick, of all of the medical diagnoses, all of the blood work, all of this stuff. And it took me about an hour to read through all of this stuff. And when I asked them, "Are you happy?" I said, "Absolutely not." "Okay, what would your life look like if you were happy?" Just visualize that. What would your life look like? You wake up in the morning, what do you do? And so we laid out a whole story of what a perfect day for them would look like. And we started making little life changes to navigate the soul into that direction. Fast forward a year later, there's no autoimmune disorder. There's nothing, perfectly happy and healthy. That's part of it. It's about identifying what the soul is fighting. It's very simple little things.
Wow. I have never heard it put that way.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I know many, many, many people with autoimmune diseases, and one person left a very corporate job and is living his dream now, and his Crohn's is gone.
Of course it is.
And you know what? That's my son. And he teaches people and helps people, just kind of find their place in life, their true place. He had a wonderful job. It's just, it wasn't in alignment with his soul. It wasn't at all.
It's exactly it. We think about, unfortunately, in this country, especially, education is more towards STEM, right? It's a math, sciences, that kind of thing. But we don't really value the artists. We don't value the creative minds so much. So we push a lot of people to work for a corporation, or to have the 9-to-5, or to do whatever it is, because that's what makes sense for society. That doesn't make sense for the individual, especially not the artist, especially not the educator, especially not those kinds of people who are forced to be put in a box.
Exactly. And he's a hip hop artist, and he has a product that an olive oil company. But
amazing.
That makes complete sense to me. I think about the one thing that's good about YouTube is some people are discovering their talents, they're getting out. But this is another thing that I was talking to some friends about. Do you know how many influencers on YouTube and Instagram young people have actually died suddenly? So tell me what's going on there.
Yeah. So I think it's the same mechanism. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, listen, I love a good glass of bourbon, but
me too.
Right? But 20 of them, we're going to have a problem, right?
Right.
So I think when there is a thing of having it too much, a lot of the influencers who started their careers sharing things that are very personal to them that they really enjoyed, and then that became a job. And now I work with a lot of influencers, and they have to film content 4, 5, 6 times a day. It is grueling work. And then the editing and all of it takes a lot. Now, I'm not a computer person, so to me, that sounds like complete hell, but I can't imagine what that life is like. I was just in New Zealand, and the interesting part is there was quite a few influencers there filming. And I'm looking out on top of this mountaintop. I went hiking the one sunny day that I went hiking, And it was so beautiful. Looking at the mountaintops, looking at the river, looking at the lake. And I sat there just taking in the beauty. And I saw 4 or 5 people filming and
Yeah.
making content. So they couldn't even enjoy this beautiful thing. So it's ruining the
Oh.
very thing that they enjoy.
Bryan, I have to share this with you because I have this beautiful social media person. I love her so much. And she always says, Sandy, can you just shoot a video of this or that? I go, no, I don't like it. I don't like shooting I love doing these interviews, but poor Lena, can you just do, and she's very understanding. I do not like shooting content unless it's something like my guides came in one day. I was on a hike and they shared this incredible piece of information of how they communicate with me to share out in the world. And that I love doing. I can't just do content for content's sake, which when you're talking about all this and influencers, I think about this podcast. I don't want to get into that with this. I don't want to make it a job where it becomes stressful to me. So I'm trying to just do this because I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's really important to share your story. People like you out in the world. It helps me selfishly. These interviews help me heal, but I think it helps you and it helps the world. So we're all in this together. So
Everybody wins, right? But I think
yeah,
you're right. When we start to make things a job and something if you don't wake up every day excited to go to work,
yeah,
something's wrong. Something's wrong. You're not doing it right. Or I get it, it may be a stepping stone. But if that becomes your life,
yeah.
your soul isn't going to be happy and it's going to start fighting with you. And then you start telling yourself dark things and it just gets really messy.
So this is what I want to take away from this is what makes your soul happy. Think about that. And I just got chills saying that, but I think if we ask ourselves that question in a somewhat meditative state, you're going to get an answer and your soul's going to say dancing, or something. It's going to scream out at you. Oh, that's beautiful, Bryan. I cannot believe we're come to the end. I say that every single
Oh, wow.
time. It goes by so fast, but this was so interesting. And our bodies are constantly talking to us, and we need to take time to listen. I do have some questions I ask everybody, which I'm going to in a minute. But what can you offer listeners and viewers to stop and listen to your body? Is there something we can do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I like to do a very beautiful, simple meditation because what this meditation teaches you is to help your body actually experience the world. Not what we imagine, but what we actually experience. So if you were to sit quietly, close your eyes and take a nice deep breath and just make a list of everything you actually hear without any judgment, without any attachment, just making a list of all the things you hear. And once you're done making this list of everything you hear, take a nice deep breath in through your nose and make a list of everything you smell. Now, it could be pleasant, it could be unpleasant, it doesn't matter. We're not attaching any emotion to it. I smell flowers, I smell this, whatever you smell. And then, what do you taste? And then, what do you feel? What do you actually feel? Start with the physical. Start with you feel your clothing against your skin. You feel your hands. You feel whatever you're sitting in the seat, whatever you feel. And then go inner. What does my body feel? What does it feel in reality? Some things can be pleasant or unpleasant. That's okay. We're just making a list right there. And then take a nice deep breath and out. Let it all go. And the very last one is you open your eyes. And what do you see? And just making a list without any attachments. And once you're done with that list, then you can resume your day. But but it gives our bodies just this moment to actually check in. What do I actually experience right now?
I want to share something because I did close my eyes for that exercise. Rarely do I separate what I smell, what I taste, because all of it's happening together. And I very distinctly, I'm in my office. What could I smell? I don't have a candle, that has a scent to it, but I could smell. I could smell something and kind of earthy. And it really helped me separate rather than everything being clumped together. I love that exercise. Thank you for sharing that.
You're so welcome. Good.
That's
And
a
I think
beautiful
we all do that.
exercise.
We can be in, having a much more authentic experience and not being overwhelmed by everything all the time.
Mm.
That's
Uh,
a big one.
Well, I'm adding that one. I really am. I really am adding that, and also talking to my soul more, which I'm finding. I just said to a friend this morning, I really want to talk to my soul more.
Ooh.
And then you're talking about this, so that's very synchronistic.
It is synchronistic, and it's so beautiful. I'm glad that resonated with you, because we forget that we are equally spiritual as we are physical. It's the yin and yang symbol, right? They're equal. We can't develop the physical body more than the spiritual body, or the spiritual body more than the physical body. They have to take up the same amount of space. I do this exercise. One of my biggest things that I'm focusing on right now is working with young men, because there's so much violence and craziness and things happening. It's because young men are not understanding what they're actually experiencing. It's this comparison, it's social media, it's this aggression, this desire to be alpha, which, makes me want to vomit just hearing that, right? It's no, what do you actually feel? What is your body actually experiencing? And let's talk about that. Let's see what your body is holding on there. And when we look at so much aggression, so much violence, so much of what we're seeing madness in the world is from young men. Yeah. The change happens from men holding other men accountable. That's where the real change happens. And we don't know how to do that until we teach our young men how to be healthy, balanced men. So that's a main focus of what I'm working on now.
That's a beautiful focus, because right now, for men in particular, they don't know their roles anymore. They have to be really careful about what they say, what they do. They don't know their roles, and they're getting, our country is just, up in arms right now. So that's beautiful, Bryan. I have some questions, if I could please share with you.
Absolutely.
You probably already answered the first one. What's your number one go-to strategy to relieve mental distress? Like in the moment?
Yoga. Yoga, 100 million% yoga. In some of the most stressful situations of my life, you will see me do yoga. I don't care if I'm in the airport in a corner somewhere trying to figure out how my next flight home is. It's if I feel dysregulated, I'm going to go into some poses and I'm going to do some physical activity with mental clarity. Yoga, 1,000,000%.
Man, I do that sometimes in the airport waiting. I'll be stretching and doing these like different yoga poses, because it really does help me. I do it every morning. It just helps me so much. That makes sense. What's one of the best pieces of advice you've received in life, personally or professionally?
Beautiful. My Uncle Bob, who was the most salt of the earth kind of guy, loved him to absolute pieces. He was my dad's best friend. And I was going on and on about when I was first starting my practice. And he looked at me and he said, in his very thick Texas accent, he said, "Youngin, who are you trying to impress?" And that stopped me dead in my tracks. I thought, what? Like, I'm trying to create this big business. I'm trying to do these things and these speaking engagements. And she's like, impress yourself. Dead stop. And that's all I've ever done.
We love Uncle Bob.
Happy, nice. Love him. He recently passed. It was nice to share.
I'm so glad that you shared it, because if we go outside, thank goodness with this podcast, I am just trying to figure me out in this whole thing. And if it helps others, wow, that's fantastic. But I never came in thinking of numbers and I have to do this. Thank goodness, because I'd lose my mind. I would lose my mind. What does a successful life look and feel like to you?
That's a good one. That's a really good one. You know, I think a successful life is where I'm able to share my work and also rest, balanced. You know, the work is heavy. The work is heavy. You know, my center here has been called, you know, the spiritual ER, because I never know who's going to come in under what crisis, and I never know. I have to be on my toes, and so it takes a lot of sheer will and mental power to get through the day. But on the same token, when I relax, I'm going to relax really hard. That's just, it's the balance of the two. That's what that would look like for me.
Love it. Another point for resting and relaxing. I'm all about it. And the last is a sentence. In the past I was, and now I am.
That's interesting. That's no. Phew. I wouldn't, how to, like, I need a second with that one. In the past I was sure, and now I am unsure.
Oh, that's a new one and that means you're not set in your ways. You're just kind of open to possibility.
Absolutely.
Ooh, I'm loving that. Wow. Bryan, where can people find you?
So here at the center, it's a Sacred Circle. So my website is Sacred Circle HC, as in healingcenter.com. And then, you know, I do workshops and speaking engagements here and there all over the place. I'm doing one in Mexico, like I said earlier. I'm doing that one for 2 weeks, a retreat there. And then I do some other grieving workshops with Dr. Laura Bourbon, and we do those ones. We do the grieving mama workshops, and Susan is a big part of that too. And so that's where we are a lot. Yeah, I mean, and then I do workshops here, and I post all those things on my website. I would say I post them on my Instagram, but I'm so terrible about posting on there. I forget about it. You know, weeks go by and I forget. But generally, when I'm teaching a workshop or have some sort of thing, it's on my website and on Instagram.
Wonderful.
Instagram is just my name.
Bryan, thank you so much for being here. This has been a true delight for me, but I've learned so much. It kind of was a life shifter for me. So thank you. The soul, it just confirmed what I said to my friend this morning, to communicate with my soul more. I need it. I am feeling that very strong.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, this is refreshing, and this is so nice to have this connection and to meet you and to be able to share this work. I mean, it really is an honor to be able to facilitate healing, and it's my life's mission. So when I get to do it, I am so happy. So I consider this a selfish move.
Oh, perfect. Then it's selfish for me too. I text messaged Susan Gra before. I said, I'm going to talk to Bryan shortly. She goes, you're going to adore him.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. I love that. I love being able to help. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Bryan. Take care. And we'll talk again. I hope we talk again very soon.
Anytime. I'm always here. I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Have a good day. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.